If you've seen my channel, you'll know I focus on photographing and filming the wild. So I'm not entirely sure what I was thinking when I gave myself this challenge while staying in Munich. 1 week, every day, with a different lens to shoot 5 photos, 5 videos. I broke my own rules more than once, but I also got a shot at the end of it that made the whole thing worth it. Well. Welcome back to my channel, guys. I'm sitting outside in beautiful Munich, Germany. If you're asking why, Yobel, are you in Munich, Germany? Well, I'm glad you asked. I just made a quick video explaining why I'm here, so you should definitely check it out. While I'm here in between my upcoming travel projects, I figured I wanted to spend some time making content, continue to make sure that I don't get rusty. Here we are as a YouTuber, as a content creator, and I want to make sure I create things that you find enjoyable, entertaining, informative, whatever it is. And because I have some of these big upcoming projects, I figured I need to warm myself up to the Nikon ZR. I need to test out the different lenses I have because I will be shooting with a few new lenses that I normally don't shoot with. I have some new gear like this cotton carrier vest where I'll be able to strap 2 cameras onto it for some of these jungle treks that I'll be on very shortly. I've got new backpacks, I've got new monopods, I've just got a bunch of new things. I've got the DJI Osmo Nano, which I'll be using for more of this kind of first-person point of view action camera footage when I go out and travel and shoot. So with all of that in mind, I figured, let me challenge myself while I'm spending these days in Munich. Let me dedicate some time every morning to go out into Munich and just capture whatever I see. One of the ways I'll challenge myself is I'm just going to go every single day with a different lens. So for example, maybe with the 85mm lens versus a 35 versus a 14mm, I'll just go with these forced perspectives to go out there and shoot whatever I can with the lens given to me. So hopefully it's going to be a fun video. I can't guarantee it, but I figure while I'm here in Munich, I should be making the most out of sharing the best of the world with the rest of the world through my lenses. So on the first day, I went with the 85mm f1.2 lens. It's a lens that's mostly known among portrait photographers, but over the years I've come to love it for wildlife. Slowly but surely, it's become one of my favorite lenses to travel and shoot with, whether I'm in the jungle or trying to catch an impromptu moment cinematically. This was my warm-up day, especially for someone who doesn't do a lot of urban or street photography, so I just kind of went out there on the scooter and wanted to see whatever caught my eye. There was what I can only describe as a pirate monkey fighting some weird fish, shark, dolphin thing that definitely caught my eye, and I did my best in the post edit to basically just strip away most of the colors just to make the monkey stand out. It was a creative direction as I was stress testing myself in terms of how I edit these types of photos, but I ended up enjoying the results. There was a casual moment I captured of this basketball court, specifically of this interesting basketball hoop that I thought stood out nicely amongst the trees. However, I would say this probably gave me the most challenge in the post-editing process. I found it extremely difficult to separate the actual basketball hoop from the trees and from the background. I edited every photo with my own presets, plus Dehancer's Lightroom plugin. I initially used Dehancer for video, but now I grade all my work with it. This isn't a sponsored video, I just love the product. So if you want to try Dehancer or my own presets, they're linked in the description with code YobelPrize for 10% off. There was another moment where I paused during my scooter ride when I noticed some graffiti on the side of a wall. Not the most aesthetically pleasing, but there was some nice play of light that was shining on one side of the wall and having a darker element where the graffiti was placed. Ultimately, in the post-edit, I decided to stick with a warm tone throughout, and especially trying to focus on the light reflecting on the side of the building, whereas on the other side you have the glow of the graffiti art itself. Something I love photographing but I find equally challenging to capture are tunnel shots. In this case, I noticed a nice deep alley that was covered in vines on both sides, so I ultimately stopped to take some photo and videos of that moment. Now in post, I realized that especially with the shallow depth of field, as I was shooting at a pretty wide aperture, a lot of it was a bit blurry. So I decided to lean into it, where I removed a lot of the texture, stripping away the focus point and turning it into a nice clean blob. Ultimately, it turned into a bit of autumn colors, but I kind of liked the results. A surprising moment that piqued my interest was the crosswalk for pedestrians and bikers. I'd never seen anything like it before, and I did quite like the aesthetics as the light went from red to green. So I took a moment to shoot this, and I did feel a little bit self-conscious as people stared at me in my harness with my camera set up, but I think the shots turned out quite nice, especially because the depth behind the pole allowed me to have some nice colors baked in, especially with the 85mm lens. An unexpected moment for me was spotting this Red Bull car parked on the side of a neighborhood street. The last time I saw one of these vehicles was back in high school, so there's a touch of nostalgia when I decided to photograph and film this moment. I did try a little bit of slow shutter speed moments as bikers or cars passed, but ultimately I landed on just shooting this crisp shot of the Red Bull vehicle and then playing with the colors until I was satisfied with it. This post-Kasten shot, which I'm probably butchering the pronunciation, but basically this mailbox shot is probably my favorite from day one. The light was doing all the work, I just had to wait for it, and I shot this through an opening in a fence, which allowed nice blurry lighting covering up the foreground to reveal the mailbox in the distance. I did notice something funny about this set only after I got home. Two of the shots have telescopes in them, the pirate monkey on the tiled wall and this mosaic figure on the orange building looking up at the sky. I didn't plan it, but it kind of feels right for a video about a photographer trying to see a city he doesn't normally see. On day 2, I was shooting with a 35mm f1.2 lens, and this lens makes you commit. You can't hide behind the compression like I could with the 85. You have to get closer to your subject and let more of the environment into the frame. And I'll be upfront, shooting urban landscapes is not really my forte. I've shot the 35mm on a chimp close-up before and with some horse shots, and that kind of intimacy I'm comfortable with. But pointing it at a city is a different beast, and this day genuinely pushed me. The shot I want to talk about is the slow shutter of the train passing through. I was trying to capture the motion, but it turns out the train caught a reflection of the house behind me, which I didn't even notice in the moment, and that's a perspective I'll be looking for in the future, something worth reflecting off a passing train in a long exposure with focus pulled to where that reflection lands so the subject is sharper. So that's good learning for next time. And then there's the spider web, where it's backlit and golden hour spilling through the strands. It was a bit late morning at the time, but in the post-production, I decided that leaning into the golden colors would help make the spider web stick out a bit more. There was another nice tunnel with a lot of graffiti on it. I thought it would be pretty challenging because we have a lot of contrast as the light bleeds in, where half the shot is in shadows and the other half is brightly lit. And it creates a little bit of an ugly diagonal line crossing through the graffiti. So I did struggle in the post-production to figure out how best to work with this. Ultimately, I ended up cropping quite a bit and faded out a lot of the lighting and the darks to create a softer complexion.
This went good?
Yes.
Oh, you have so professional jig for all that pictures. You're great.
Just practicing. Hello. Hey, buddy. There's some cats here.
Hey, you were great.
Somewhere with you alone, somewhere.
You know, there is a lake in that direction. It's pretty big, pretty nice. And there are not so many people here around. So if you go that direction, you simply go straight to the railway, to the rails. Then you go over the rails and go down.
Okay.
And then you'll find a very nice lake over there.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Thanks, Sean. Hey, buddy. Uh-oh. Friendly one time.
Not the most cinematic, but as I was wandering a park, I did notice this sign that I found quite funny since I can't read German. All I could see was that the icons seemed to say that nothing is allowed there except death. And to me, I found it, I don't know if that's German humor, but it's definitely right up my alley. There was some nice ivy that was growing on this tree. And then from the photo perspective, I just made sure to accentuate the greens of the leaves so that it stood out amongst the browns of the tree that it was covering. On day 3, it was the widest lens I had with me, the 14mm f4 Viltrox lens. And it's a completely different energy. You can't isolate anything with this lens, so everything is the context. And the surprising part was that the depth became the story, especially in these tunnel shots. I think those are probably the best from this batch, where you have a strong vanishing point and the leading lines pulling your eye through the frame. What I struggled with this day was finding unique subjects to separate from the background. You can't really separate with the 14mm, or at least I haven't discovered it, so I had to lean on geometry and lines doing the work instead. Day 4 was my weakest day in terms of finding things to capture. I almost hesitated to sharing them just because it was that weak. And ironically, I think some of it could be attributed to how much I rely on the lens. This was the only day I used a zoom, the 70-200 f2.8. And to me, when you're given that flexibility and range, it's like walking into a cheesecake factory and being handed their menu, which is bigger than the Bible. And when you have so many choices, you ultimately don't know what to focus on. With the fixed lens, the perspective is forced on you and it helps guide you to what you want to see. But I couldn't find that same eye for attention to a story with the 70-200, at least on that day. I only got 3 photos this day, but the one I would point out probably is the man walking towards a building at a distance. Not because the shot is anything spectacular, it was more just nice to get back into something that I am familiar with, which is stalking a subject as I do with wildlife. Obviously, has different connotations when it comes to stalking a human, but German humor. So here's where I have to be honest. I told you at the start that I might fail, and around the middle of this week, I did. Day 5, I barely went out. I shot 2 short clips and nothing I'd call a real photo, so I'm not going to even pretend it was a real day. And the truth is, this challenge was a side project for me. I was in Munich between 3 back-to-back travel projects within 2 months. There was a CNN project, which I'll get into once it's public. There was a group photo tour that I was organizing in Uganda, and a workshop that I was leading in Tanzania. The logistics for all 3 were happening in parallel, and I was also juggling Dubai responsibilities remotely. There is a war going on there as we speak, so that did add a bit extra pressure and stress. And I'd packed for the jungle, not from Munich, in March. So on top of all of that, I was freezing my ass off every time I was on those scooters. None of that is a good excuse, it's just context. And the challenge ultimately bent. I'm telling you so you don't think this was easy. It wasn't, but I really am grateful I went for it.
Morgan.
Morning.
Morning.
Name?
Yobel. What's yours?
My name is Martin.
Martin?
I'm
Martin.
Are you coming from photo shooting?
Yeah. I'm doing some filming, video.
Fighting area? It looks very good.
It's for the jungle. Yeah. But this is Germany.
Oh, it's very cold. It's very.
I love it.
It's not, nah, it's
I'm
not
from
good.
I'm from the desert, so this is perfect.
From the desert, but you come from the jungle.
Yeah. Wrong place.
But it's okay. You looks very good.
Day 6 was a mixed day for me. I shot with the 85mm f1.2 and only ended up taking 1 photo, just a shot of a tower fading off into the fog. The 85mm compression does make it feel stacked in the same plane, but it's not something that I really hang my hat on. But what I actually spent most of this day doing wasn't photography, it was practicing more of the cinematography. I shot some nature footage, trying to focus on close-ups of flowers, bushes, and leaves, and keep practicing manual focus pulls. It's an area that I think I could definitely use some practice and improvement, and sometimes it worked, a lot of times it didn't, but it's all in the practice. And this was good prep for the projects coming up, where cinematography would matter just as much as stills. So even though the photo count was low, it was the right place to put my focus that morning. What I didn't know yet was that Munich was setting me up. That same tower would be back the next day, and just not the way I expected. On the 7th day of shooting, it wasn't actually supposed to be a shooting day at all. I was inside my friend's studio prepping for the trip. It was already a foregone conclusion that I wasn't going to go out and shoot because I needed to focus on packing, organizing gear, and just mentally getting ready for what was coming. So technically, this is another day where I failed the challenge. But then it started snowing, and not just a flurry, we're talking real snow, the kind that changes a city in 20 minutes and covers the landscape. And as a desert boy, it was everything I loved to capture. But then as the snow started to wind down, I looked off in the distance, and you could see the Olympic Tower, but it was shrouded in clouds. One from the changing in weather, but also from smoke coming from a nearby factory. And it created to me what was one of the most artistic shots if I could nail it. So I quickly scrambled to grab my 400mm f2.8 lens, which might have been overkill, but it was actually perfect for this moment. And I went to the balcony window, set up the camera, and ultimately ended up getting some incredible photo and video moments. From a photo perspective, I decided to lean in to a golden hour look, and ultimately mixing in almost like clouds, but also smoke and fire, making it a little bit more on the artistic side, less on the natural, but I ultimately ended up really appreciating this artistic direction. So that was it. That concluded my self-imposed challenge. In hindsight, I'm really glad I went forward with this because it was the push I needed to just go outside and explore. I have a habit of turning into a hermit with 1,000 excuses why I have to sit in front of my computer in between my travels in order to catch up on work, edit, whatever it is. Munich was supposed to serve that function, just a stopover location to treat like a temporary home base in between my travel projects. Process of this challenge, it made me appreciate the parts of Munich I aimlessly discovered. It shook off the rust just in time for my projects. But most importantly, it reignited my passion for finding beauty in the normalcy, in the unexpected, hidden, all throughout our daily lives. It's a different type of wild, yes, but it's wild nonetheless. And I hope you enjoyed that journey. I encourage everyone to set challenges for yourself as well. You never know what you'll discover. Yeah. Anyways, that's all I got to share. So thank you guys for tuning into this random video of me on a bench in Munich. But just know I'm alive. Things are going well. Stay safe. Cheers.